If someone struggles about trying to find a definition of what is ethical and unethical, my recommendation is, if something doesn't feel right, the chances are it's because it's not right. It's a gray area which definitely needs regulation, 100%. And the law needs to be adapted to this new historical context. So that's why these arguments about, oh, but I know this is not, where did you see the copyright infringement here? Well, yeah, because you're laundering the pixels. You're mixing a lot. You know, if you steal £1 from 1 million people, it's gonna be really hard to catch you. I feel fear even in young people about should I study art or not. And there is a beautiful, almost poetic contradiction of all this, that is, yes, more than ever, double up. Like, really now is the moment where you have a voice. Like, literally, art in the last 20 years has been sadly quite driven either by, let's say, postmodern art or by massive Hollywood industry and video games industry, which has already standards that this is your fence, and if you go outside the fence, you are not gonna sell.
Hi, so a big topic at the moment obviously is AI, ChatGPT, AI art, Midjourney and all of these things, including there's actually a recent lawsuit going on. And I've got someone who's been very much involved in this issue, Alvaro García Martínez, and I wanted to get him involved. We're going to do our usual discussion a little bit about his career and so forth, but what we also really want to talk about is, you know, what is going on? What is AI art, and is it art? Is it just stealing? What's going on? Well, first of all, what do you do and how did you get into the industry?
I started in VFX. Actually, I started doing games as a kid. Like, all my life I was modding games, you know. But at some point it's like, oh, maybe I can make some money doing something related with 3D. And then I just decided to study 3D animation in Madrid, and then I went to London and I started working in medical animation, actually, a couple of years, which is quite interesting field. And then after 2 years, it's like, I want to make movies. And then it's when I started my kind of tour for all the classics, London companies, MPC, DNEG, ILM. I had enough time to do 2 rounds around them. I think we all know what we mean about this. It's simple, and at the same time, it's the only way. Sometimes, sadly, you can progress. Yeah, you can be in a company 10 years, but I found exciting the idea of jumping to know different environments. And finally, after a decade of working VFX, I decided to, when COVID hit, I just founded my company and moved to more game development, because the last couple of years I was quite involved in virtual production, which is kind of the bridge, right, of real time to video games. And then I founded my company, Mayhem Mirror Studios, where we do both things, filmmaking content, but also video games. In parallel, just to summarize, I've been always doing my own projects from, again, 10 years ago, I started doing Summer, which is a 10 minutes pilot about climate change, before climate change was, you know, quite in the focus of media right now. And then in 2020, I released a second one, which is The Seed of Juna. Those are the 2 pilots I did, and that's what I'm doing right now with this company. Is okay, I'm gonna bring all the knowledge from VFX, all the knowledge I got doing my pilots, and let's do a video game. Like, coming back to the past, which is as a kid doing little games and mods. Finally, I'm trying to, you know, converge all together doing content. And that's my story.
Brilliant. So you began working with Unreal actually in VFX. Were you working with Unreal?
Yeah, I work in the last 2 years. I work in virtual production with Unreal. The last movie I worked was actually Matrix 4, and we were working quite actively inside Unreal Engine. We were building tools, but in my opinion, I wanted to go faster. Like, I really wanted to experiment more, and there was a lot of fear at that moment because of COVID, and obviously I was excited about using that time for R&D. But one thing is what you want, another thing is the budget and how you allocate the budget inside a VFX company, and R&D is something that is very hard to sell internally. So it was like, damn, I want to do more real-time stuff. I really believe we can deliver final pixel, not just previs or post-vis. I want final pixel there. And there was a lot of skepticism. Not all the people. There is always, you know, in this company, there is always, it's a little bit of time consuming. You need to convince too much. And that's why I'm starting to believe in small teams to create way more interesting content in this time. Which is interesting about AI, because someone can argue like, oh, but AI can empower small teams to do big things. You know, it's like, one of the big topics I can already bridge with that of the AI defenders is trying to use our arguments in the past in their favor. But that's a fallacy, because there are many fallacies. It's like, not because now AI can make a video game, let's say, a card game, for example, in 2 weeks means that it's what we wanted before. You know, we want other things. We want tools, you know, so yeah.
I think also I saw that one important aspect of your post is you talk about being against the unethical use of AI. So let's talk about ethical and unethical use. Actually, I don't know. This is a very big subject, and I did wonder when I was thinking the best way to start in. But I think there is. Let's look at ethical use. So, for example, on this podcast, I use Resolve. Sometimes we have noise. People talking in the background. Not everyone has the best microphone. And recently, Resolve 18 added this AI noise remove tool, and I run that, and it's absolutely brilliant. I've removed like people tapping on the table. All kinds of things. It's not perfect. If their microphone isn't very good and it's peaking, you can't fix it. But it's way better than any of the previous tools that I had. So that's, I presume, a pretty ethical use. I know that with Copycat in Nuke, a lot of the time we might do, a couple of frames where we paint something into the eye and then we replicate that across the sequence. Or
exactly.
We might do previous roto, where you rotor a few frames and then you let the AI rotor the rest of it.
Absolutely.
So there are lots of. So you're not opposed to the technology. Let's be clear here.
That would be stupid on my side, because I'm working with 4, 5, 6 systems AI related, even diffusion models each day with style transfer, for example, in Houdini, where you use wave action collapse to basically I draw a little maze and then I can expand that little maze into millions of variations. That is my maze, and I'm doing variations of my own input. And I think that if someone struggles about trying to find a definition of what is ethical and unethical, my recommendation is, if something doesn't feel right, the chances are it's because it's not right. You know, it's like we need to try to abstract a bit of the circle, and maybe the law is not written, maybe the terms of conditions are a bit abstract. It's a matter of, do you feel this is right? What happened with the art community is that not all the people, even myself, is not completely ready in the legal field to defend or to all the things, but it's about the sense. When you have millions of people and you have an entire revolt on Artstation saying this is not right, even if, sorry, I can't articulate, I don't want to have a linguistic battle right now, I just feel something is not right. I think it's important to have a bit of empathy of saying, look, I know you don't have the tools to articulate what you are thinking, but I heard you and I understand we should talk about this. So that's my take on that. It's like, yeah, I can put the line of, I can put a red line in the middle, this is ethical and unethical, and start to just put different concepts. But I do believe that when millions of people talk, it's because something is off. And then we start to need to debate what is exactly what is off. And now, little by little, we start to see how lawyers are transpiring the reasons that ourselves by intuition noticed. So first, the intuition, and later we just make the concrete statement of this is unethical. So that's why in my case it's like, I used my journey the first months, as I think many of us, when this happened, like, wow, so cool. And you enter into this kind of dopamine loop of let's put prompts, and it's like, oh, it's cool, a bit noisy, but it's cool. Until one day, talking with a developer about ChatGPT, I needed to wait to that moment to realize. So no shame if you realize this later. What is important is to know this at some point. And this guy told me, because I saw, hey, look, I did a procedural maze using ChatGPT in Python, or I can't remember. And he told me, that's great, but I don't want to use this because I don't know where this snippet is taken from. And was like, boom, like, wow, fuck, that makes sense. Yeah, we can argue about if it's a collage or it's not a collage. It's not exactly the same, but it is true that that has been extracted from a place, a coherence that has no permission. And when that moment happened, when this guy told me this about snippets and stuff in this procedural text generated, is what just completely changed my mindset and noticed that, oh, this works for image, for music, for text, for cooking. It doesn't matter. It's extracting the work and identity, passion, years, fears, goals of others. Because that's another, I can divert in many topics, like, it's not just about the coherence between one pixel here and another pixel here and a trace, and what is a cat and what is a dog. It is also about, you are stealing years of choices that ended in a pixel there. That pixel there is not just like a RGB color. That pixel that is there because this guy lived 20 years on art. So you are stealing more than that if you think about it. So that's the dangers of this.
The collage tool is important because obviously, as we said, but artists don't necessarily understand the legal ramifications, but lawyers and judges and juries don't necessarily understand how the art industry works, and they don't necessarily understand how the technology works. So what I thought was interesting, and you shared this link, and we'll share a link in the description, but you mentioned in the legal skills, they actually describe the diffusion model, and they describe it, as you said earlier, as a digital collage. So if I don't want to go too deeply into, like, neither of us are lawyers, and I don't necessarily want to say anything that might even affect the court case in some way, but my understanding is that the basis of their basic argument is this is a digital collage, and the way the diffusion model works is it takes a complex image, it breaks it down into noisier versions, and then rebuilds it from the noise. Very much like JPEG compression or MP4 compression. I mean, if you think about the temporal compression that you have between frames in an H.264 file that we're all kind of familiar with, I would think, in this industry. So in a very similar way, it's taking this image down. Obviously, it may be using multiple sources and not just one image, but all of those source images are something that somebody created and distributed and freed. And there is, as our understanding is that neither the creators of Midjourney nor the creators of Stable Diffusion have actually been very what would you say, very specific in looking for images that are free to use and circulate and use. I mean, if you're creating a DMP, I mean, DMP artists will be familiar with this. You go onto Flickr and you check the permissions and you find photos that have free for commercial use. That the photographer has said, you can take this, you can cut it up, and then you might take some pictures of mountains and. You know, just as that human artist could potentially, that DMP could potentially be breaching copyright if you're just taking anyone's photos.
Yeah.
It's no different than if it's being done automatically and you're just typing in a prompt.
Let's make advocate devil here, and let's imagine for a second this kind of another fallacy here a lot. Like, it's not what AI is not what humans do, learning and then reproducing, blah blah blah. Which is a bit of a fallacy because obviously AI doesn't learn, basically just follows statistical patterns and then recognizes coherence and then repeat that. We have a ingestion of data, and if maybe that day, you know, we had a fight with our girlfriend, boyfriend, or we don't have breakfast, we are a bit more angry, and then our stroke is a bit more weak. And you know, there are many things when we are seeing information from the world, we got a fucking complex machinery that we don't even understand how to start with. You know, we are close to send rockets to the moon, but we don't know anything about our brain. I mean, we know about our brain, but we really are start to transpire now. For example, there are many studies that say that the best way of learning and memorizing is through emotions. That's why we remember things that they are related with drama or joy than random book of history, you know, because our emotions are involved in the process of learning. You don't need to cheer up the machine AI to say, come on, you are doing well to do better job. Or you don't need to kill another computer in front of the machine AI to be sad and then make better jobs. The AI is gonna work no matter what. It's a process, it's a statistical process. So, but yeah, aside of that, let's imagine that AI learns in the same way of humans. Law is always written in the historical context and the circumstances. When copyright law was created, AI existed, but it was not something to consider at that moment. It was some modifications in different countries per use case, but nothing like really to consider in a big scale. Take that example, and let's imagine that as humans, our evolution brought us big claws, like knives, that they can kill people. I can tell you that in a modern society, there would be laws about our big nails because they can kill people, like you need to cut your nails. For example, you know where I'm going? So the reason of this argument is we need to understand that if AI is a trouble now, not because there is no law written, it means like you can do whatever, because law can have also retroactive actions. This means that now, because AI has the potentiality of doing this in mass production, that's the big difference of doing a Photoshop and doing a copyright infringement, copy-pasting some images with copyright, or doing this in a fucking mass scale, with also pixel laundering, which makes the things more complicated, because you are stealing from billions or millions or thousands. So it's a gray area which definitely needs regulation, 100%. And the law needs to be adapted to this new historical context. So that's why these arguments about, oh, but I know this is not, where did you see the copyright infringement here? Well, yeah, because you're laundering the pixels. You're mixing a lot. You know, if you steal £1 from 1 million people, it's going to be really hard to catch you, because you're stealing a very small amount of money. This is like when people spread $300 in different accounts in Switzerland, and it's very hard to catch them because they don't raise the bar. This is the same. You are spreading so much the infringement in so many parts that what is the copyright infringement? Because in many places, for example, if you want to report a copyright infringement in Artstation, Sketchpad, etc., you need to be the owner of the copyright to report that. But you see the contradiction here. It's hard because there are thousands. You need to create systems in like a action class, like, hey, we all feel that our work is being used. So there are many complexities, and what I'm trying to say is like, we need to adapt to the current circumstances and stop thinking about the past.
Although there are specific cases where someone has specifically used the prompt to emulate a living artist, a working artist, and say, I would like some. I really like this portfolio. I want to create a picture of a rabbit in the style of this artist, and then of course it's generating that. And clearly they've specified the name of the artist, and so there are cases where this connection is much more direct.
Yeah, I'm just trying to me that debate is like over. I mean, if you are like, it's like there is no even debate. It's like you're being a fucking moron with all my excuse, but that is like, you know, like stupid. I'm just trying even to go even to the corner cases, like gray areas where people try to defend now with new. Every week there's a new fallacy about this, and it's like, dude, you are falling not in the argument, you're falling in the basic of logic of Greek philosophy of if it's B, it doesn't mean necessarily A. You know, if in the street is raining, in the street is wet, it doesn't mean because it's raining. It could be because someone is cleaning the street. So they are failing in the basic concept when they say, oh, but machine learning is learning like you. Oh, but this is like photography. Oh, but what is the difference of this and you using AI, you know, to do a nuke patch or something? It's like, hold a second. And I think that's the important effort we should put in not trying to debate in the highest standards, but going to the bottom and see what is the logic of this argument you are trying to defend, because it falls, you know.
So, I mean, my wife always says that, you know, that people in England, for example, don't study philosophy, and that she sees that they need to study logic, and that a lot of the failings are just logical fallacies. But specifically on this issue, you actually posted an article where you went through, I think you chose 10 I think I could bring it up if you want, or if you have it to hand.
I remember.
We could go through. So you posted 10 specific fallacies. So I wonder if we could go through those. The most popular one you mentioned is it's like photography.
Oh yeah, the photography one. I mean, that's like, I'm surprised that they use this fallacy, because I think they just saw that in another post and said, "Oh, I got now my winner argument. I'm gonna put this everywhere, and everyone is gonna love it." But if you see first, there was no like a real fight. If you see historically, seeing of painters going against against cameras and burning cameras, and I'm gonna sue everyone. That didn't happen. There was some friction, but an artistic friction, more like this is art or this is not art. No one was saying you are stealing our art. You use the camera to portray the nature or the world or humans, but you were not going with your camera to do picture of the Mona Lisa and saying this is my work. This is the Mona Lisa now is mine because I make a picture. That's the first thing. The second thing is like a camera is gonna work by its own. Yeah, with its own mechanical pieces back in the days. Now it's digital, but same. It's gonna work by its own, and maybe a little bit of software, that maybe a little bit of AI on databases of Kodak or Canon, but all internally. And you don't need to fit billions of images in a camera to make it work with no permission and no consent and no notification. So to me the camera fallacy is like I could do better. I can try better fallacies. I'm not gonna give them the tools, but I can find way better fallacies. Not to speak about the horse versus cars. It's like, dude, what the hell are you talking about? That's even more hilarious. Like,
having said that about the horse and the car, I would say that, we have motor cars, but we have a lot of laws governing the use of motor cars. We have speed limits. We have the requirement that you carry insurance.
Good point.
We have you have limits on parking.
Yeah.
You have limits on where you can put a road. You have to pay road tax. There were all these different laws. There were also early laws. For example, at the beginning of cars in England, they had this thing called the Red Flag Act, where you actually had to have someone walking in front of your car carrying 2 red flags and waving them so that you wouldn't run people over. And since then, we've added traffic lights, double yellow lines, box junctions, all kinds of things that control and litigate the use of cars. So there was a problem when cars were just zooming around with the same laws as horses, but at a higher speed, and that did require changes to the way society was organized, and possibly not. That's obviously different. In Holland has a different set of priorities to the United States, where the United States did everything to make the car the priority, and in Holland they decided to make pedestrians the priority, and the car is secondary. So there are different ways of approaching these issues, but every new technology has required some kind of legal framework. Okay, so we've talked about photography and the horse. What's the next fallacy?
I guess but I already mentioned this one, how humans learn in the same way that AI. I mean, just to don't repeat myself and to summarize, no, that's not true. They want to make to look like that, like, hey, this is as humans, but just way faster. So what is the problem? First, if it's way faster, if you can learn to that speed, coming back to the idea of how law is contextual and historical, if you can learn with a glimpse about the world and having that knowledge, I can tell you already, copyright will work different. I can tell you that. If you are a machine of learning, you have, for example, augmented bio or whatever chips in your brain that they are extended, that's going to be regulated, because you saw the movie Gattaca.
I haven't actually seen Gattaca, but I'm sure.
It talks about transhumanism and how technology separates humanity, because now basically you can choose your baby to be smarter, stronger, and better in many things. A bit of Nazi comparison there. And the dilemma of, if you can learn to that speed, maybe the copyright law also works in the frame of what is fair for the entire market. If you have something that is able to break a market that has millions of jobs, you most likely will have problems in the legal frame at some point. And I think Midjourney know this already. I was reading actually a couple of hours ago the terms of conditions of Midjourney. Like, they are incredible, and it looks like written looks written like a I don't know, like the nieces of someone, or like incredible.
I saw your post actually. It's quite funny. Yes, it says like,
I
if
will
you
come to
knowingly
you.
infringe someone else's intellectual property and that costs us money, we're gonna come find you and collect the money from you.
What kind
We
of
might also
wording?
do other stuff. Yeah, I should read it more in a sort of like The Sopranos, right? Like,
What kind of wording in a let's say Silicon Valley company is that? What kind of wording is that? And that tells you already, that can transpire the kind of people is behind it. I mean, I welcome technology, I welcome everything. I work with technology every day, with AI, machine learning, procedural tools. But dude, don't lose the touch. Don't lose the touch with the people, and don't lose the touch with the artists you are using for your product. Don't lose the common sense, because I think it's a dangerous path in the long term. And we are in this. The last 3 years has become the years of egocentric CEOs everywhere, with big dreams about saving humanity, and no one is asking for being saved here. If you want to save humanity, just put the resources in other stuff. No one asks you to do this kind of generative art, whatever. That, by the way, another fallacy is, oh, this is for research purposes. No, this is not for research purposes anymore. You work 1 year in research for research purposes to be able to collect data with no legal implications. But right now you are charging your users, and you are adding even a business model that says that you own the digital assets. Well, yeah, it's like the same thing, another fallacy. And this is a fallacy made by, with intention, which is scary, by Midjourney, saying, if you pay the business fee or whatever is that, you own the assets. But owning the assets doesn't mean that you have the copyright of the asset. Well, this t-shirt is not a Marvel t-shirt, but I could have perfectly here a Marvel t-shirt. And it's my t-shirt with a Marvel logo. It's my t-shirt, but that doesn't mean now, because I bought this Marvel t-shirt, and I now can, do Marvel products and say this is a Marvel original product. That's
Right.
And some people don't understand that ownership is not the same that copyrights. So and that's the beauty of the word. Like I don't know how many people read this word slowly. Copyrights.
Yeah.
You know?
This is one of the good things about, I guess, we got from German. You can just stick words together and make new words.
Yeah. So, that was, again, I've been back and forth with fallacies. Every single time I see one of them, it's like, and it's like a kind of shock. Like, you read that and it's like, okay, something is not right here. And then you start to analyze and it's like, okay, this is stupid. And the beauty of this is like the community, or the AI bros, or whatever you want to call it, because again, I use AI, but I try to use the common sense. I think they are running out of fallacies at some point, because I see the same, like, all fallacies in the last 2 months, and it's like, this has been already talked. We need to move forward to the next stage. We maybe want to welcome AI and generative images at some point, but we need to discuss how with, the community that empowered this to start with. Another interesting thing. I've been hiring for my company because we need modelers, animators, riggers, and the problem of many platforms, like, you can't filter AI, so it's become really hard to find talent right now on LinkedIn. It never was let's say a platform empowered to showcase art. Let's say that. I've been talking with LinkedIn people as well, and they know that. But it was extremely hard because there was a mix of AI topics, which I appreciate, but also AI whisperers or artists or whatever they want to call themselves. Because I was quite involved in the topic of AI, I only got that fed in my wall, so I couldn't see the artists in the world there, and it was really, really hard to hire this talent or to find this talent. So I end up in the last 2 weeks to literally, it looks rude, but every single time I saw a AI generative post with images, I just needed to block that person and remove the connection. Because first, I don't believe it's gonna bring me opportunities in my field, and second, it's boring the real talent of artists. They are looking for a job and they have the talent. So I needed to do a proactive exercise of filtering myself all the AI in the platform. So I just hope tools like, again, Facebook, LinkedIn, Twitter is able to filter or to somehow categorize what is AI and what is not, because Instagram also is a place where you can hire people, and sometimes I'm wasting time in checking, is this AI or not, and you are zooming in and it's like, okay, this is AI, next one. If you pile up all this number of minutes, you waste a lot of time now finding talents. And that is why the revolt of Artstation was not only about the no AI tag. It was about, dude, if you like so much AI, do a AI station and put all the AI there. I'm trying to hire concept artists now. Don't waste my time on that. You know what I mean? Don't let everything in, because then it's not Artstation anymore. It's a tech station, or it's an AI or a mix station.
Yeah, a research station. And this actually brings one of the other fallacies that I've heard, which is the idea that artists are being elitist by trying to exclude. They're trying to. There's almost like a form of discrimination. They compare it to, discriminating against someone with disabilities. That you're saying because you can do art, you're excluding those people that don't have that artistic ability. I thought it'd be worth talking about that, because it's clearly not the same thing.
I mean, I don't know a profession that has been less elite. That let's put aside Banksy's and modern art, okay? Because that's a niche of the art, and I can agree that's elitist. But art, if you check history, I mean, I've had an anecdote I was 12 years old and I was very bad at the school, and I was writing I did rap music, and I was doing like a little poetry, some rhymes in the book, on the economic book, and the teacher near me and was like, what are you doing? It's like, no, I'm just writing. Obviously I was not paying attention to the class, so she was pissed off, and she told me, I got this in my mind, like, artists end up starving, that. She told me that, what a teacher, eh? She told me that and was like quite shocked, like, oh, artists are very poor people. So that's the image, actually, and that's the real thing on history. Like, artists are not elites, are actually people quite passionate, that they love to share if it's asked respectfully. I myself...
Artstation, people are posting art for free. I mean, that's what
completely
happens.
And it's not always to find a job. Sometimes it's because we feel excited. Yeah, there's a bit of ego, but I agree that if you are an artist, there is a little bit of ego involved. But a bit of ego or self-esteem doesn't mean that you are elitist. I myself share my knowledge on a stream, 6 hours streaming, showing all the blueprints and all the work and answering all the questions. What the hell are you talking about? Another thing is your laziness. That's another story, but that's not our problem, man. And then the accessibility or disability in art, clearly they don't know about history of art, or Frida Kahlo, or Van Gogh, or Beethoven. What the fuck? Beethoven was doing music and was deaf. Goya got a sickness that was, when he did the black painting, was fucking dying there. And he did art with suffering and pain. People paint with fucking feet if they need to. Art is not about the result, it's about the journey of being able to do something. Are you telling me that now, if someone can type a prompt, trust me, they will find ways of expressing even better than that. Even better than that. I can feel more excitement on a kid drawing shit on a paper than typing realistic, that they don't know even what that means. You know what I mean? So that's a kind of insulting fallacy, because they are trying to appeal to that we are heartless, or we don't care about accessibility, and that's a kind of infurious one, because it's like, dude, you are on the antipodes, you're on the opposite of what we really are as a community, and historically speaking, could be some people
if you post a bad drawing, you're gonna critique it, but you're gonna be supportive, right? If it posts a terrible
we sometimes
pencil drawing,
critique or but that's not a gatekeeper. That's actually, there are good feedback, bad feedback, whatever. But this kind of portraying art as gatekeepers, dude. Now, technology has been a gatekeeper, well known in the big tech companies. You think the Google code is shared with Microsoft, and Microsoft shares with Meta? they are gatekeepers. They are actually the gatekeepers because they know there is a big portion of the market there, and the one that hits with the best AI generative text or search engine is gonna take the entire market. It's all in. So don't focus on us about gatekeeper, because grabbing a pencil is anyone can buy a $1.50 pencil, and everyone can take a paper, and you can draw in the walls of your kids can draw in the walls of their rooms. I mean, it's like it's a big one. It's not a it's a big fallacy. There is no even how to take that. Gatekeepers.
And so
I get angry. I get angry. Sorry about that. I just sometimes it's like, oh my god,
it's a passion. I mean, it's a passion. Have you felt that sort of working on this issue has taken away time? Because obviously you're running a business. You've started a business.
Yeah, indeed. My girlfriend already. It was on Christmas. I was a bit away from work, so I got the tablet and and it's like, oh man, this is happening now. But I also told my girlfriend, like, whatever we do now is gonna define many things in the future. And this is not about fear about losing my job. I draw like shit. I should be the last one worried about this. I can use AI to don't hire concept artists. I mean, could be the first one right now, but. To me, it was like, again, like I always end up in companies in VFX as well. I maybe it's a Spaniard legacy or something. I can't stop talking if I feel something is not right, and I don't want to see myself as trying to defend the way. It's just even maybe my ego. Like if I see something wrong, it's like, dude, shut because this is not correct. And that's why I started to take a bit of my time, and because I knew I was going to end up in some debates with people. I talked with people from Stable Diffusion, people from Midjourney, developers, other programmers, to understand better. I knew I was going to have some debates, so I not also spent time on social media about arguing, but also about studying law and diffusion models, basically, a bit, at least to have the basic knowledge of understanding until what point is stealing or not. So yeah, it took time, but now that I got the picture, now the things are rolling by its own. It's like you do the first push of the car, and now things are now like in a good pace. We need to keep fighting, of course. No one needs to relax right now, but there are good news happening. We saw the action suit, the action class suit already happening. We saw media like Verge, The Wired. We are happy that media is actually not in our favor or not. It's more like it's involved. That's enough. Being involved is all what we need. Later they can have their opinion or columnist, but at least they are involved. And we see our community quite united. From every kind of tragedy or bad circumstances, we can always find that kind of good thing that emanated from these circumstances. And I never seen our community, maybe when the green chromas happened like years ago with the Life of Pi, or the Ukraine war as well, our community just reacted very well. But this one is crazy. The AI Discord now, I think it's no AI Discord is over, I don't know, 15,000 or 10,000. Last time, 1 month ago, was 10K. And it's growing and it's quite united. So it took time, but now I feel like, okay, you can step away a bit. You don't need to, I just removed all the connections of AI, so, and it was smart because I checked today what they are doing. They're still with the same fucking loop, so whatever. They will find the reality at some point in their life, I hope, so.
So, okay, so let's go a bit about what, do you know how do you feel the no AI movement began? Because obviously people were angry and annoyed, but this is clearly in some sense coordinated. People have actually begun working together in a not completely disorganized way.
I believe, if I need to recall, because I think for everyone it started in a different moment, but I think the trigger was to see one specific post. This is my opinion or my perception. One specific post that went to the main page on Artstation and was AI generated. And it's when I started to see this kind of no AI. I can't remember the artist. I'm gonna be very bad with names, but there was one artist that did the no AI logo first time. And then I started to see that after this AI in the community, which is when you see sometimes, and there was one big AI work there in a big frame proportion on Artstation. So I think that click, that contradiction, like it's like a slap in the face. That's something maybe that happens in the small spaces here and there is like whatever. But seeing this like boring, like literally it's so humiliating if you think about it. The proportion of the scale of the different pictures depending on how much engagement they create. And this is a fallacy made by with intention, which is scary, by Midjourney saying if you pay the business fee or whatever is that, you own the assets. But owning the assets doesn't mean that you have the copyright of the asset. Well, this t-shirt is not a Marvel t-shirt, but I could have perfectly here a Marvel t-shirt. And it's my t-shirt with a Marvel logo. It's my t-shirt. But that doesn't mean now because I bought this Marvel t-shirt and I now can, do Marvel products and say this is a Marvel original product. And some people don't understand that ownership is not the same that copyrights. So and that's the beauty of the word. Like I don't know how many people read this word slowly. Copyrights. Yeah. So yeah, that was again. I've been back and forth with fallacies every single time I see one of them. Is like, and it's like a kind of shock. Like you read that and it's like, okay, something is not right here, and then you start to analyze, and it's like, okay, this is stupid. And the beauty of this is like the community or the AI bros or whatever you want to call it, because again, I use AI, but I try to use the common sense. I think they are running out of fallacies at some point, because I see the same, like all fallacies in the last 2 months, and it's like this has been already talked. We need to move forward to the next stage. We maybe want to welcome AI and generative images at some point, but we need to discuss how with the community that empowered this to start with. It doesn't work. We are more monkeys than altruists, sadly. I mean, it's not like a negative vision, but it's you read Sapiens or you see about biology and you see that we are still monkeys. We just one day started to walk into legs, put some clothes, and we think now we are smart. But man, in bad circumstances, what is art there? Trust me, people is gonna steal, people is gonna harass, people is gonna copy, people is gonna try to copy, manipulate to don't look like they copied. So when all this happened is when the things started to just go crazy, like. And now I think it's more stable because law finally and media finally is taking a more slow and well cooked and articulated movement. We also almost hit the 270k needed for lobbying in USA. The Europe Go Fund as well is about to reach the maximum. So things are built, and that's a good sign, because I did politics back in the days. And one thing is dangerous about politics and your arguments is if you look very angry all the time, that's perfect, because you look like an angry artist and they put you in the corner. So the fight is over. I would not over. The emotion should start to translate into actions little by little. And we can start debate about if this is something that is, like bad or we can call out, but we need just to maybe reserve that energies into educating ourselves, getting ready, prepare low action suits, prepare talking with a lawyer, prepare knowing about how this technology works. And I think that's already happening. So that's in general good news. I just did a kind of summary of what I felt in the last 2 months. I think we are already in a kind of plateau, but it's a good plateau. I think it's a good moment now.
The view is very much a kind of Lord of the Flies view of humanity, which I don't necessarily agree with. I mean, even within animals, you get some sort of altruistic action. So even if we are monkeys, I mean, chimpanzees and bonobo, our closest relatives, are quite nice actually. Like they're it's odd because there's chimpanzees and there's bonobos, and bonobos tend to be a lot more passive, a lot more collaborative, and chimpanzees can be a lot more brutal. So we can have both of these aspects in our makeup. But
no, completely.
Where I think you are right is that you do need some sort of social regulation, or some kind of, and some of this is not just going to be legal, because one thing I was thinking is that we do talk about using copyrighted images without permission. The unfortunate aspect is that we also produce a lot of work which where we don't own the copyright. I mean, for example, if you're a concept artist and you work for Disney or Marvel or any large company, you are handing over the copyright of that concept art. So in theory,
it's your choice.
But in theory, a large company could then use work from artists that they've employed in the past and generate new work in perpetuity. And this is, an issue that previously did not exist, because if they liked your work and they wanted more of it, they would have to hire you again. But in theory, they liked your work, they generate an AI model based upon your work that you've done for hire for the past 10 years, and they stop hiring you. So there are some issues where there might be a moral argument against, but the legal arguments are going to be much more difficult, because in terms of copyright ownership, we're talking about ownership by a company. And of course, whenever we sign up for a service or a social media platform, we click that button that says, I agree to the terms and conditions, but very rarely do people read all of them.
No, of course. Which also is one thing, like terms and conditions. If you start to see how they are evolving the last 5 years, there is always like a summary of the terms and conditions and then the extended terms and conditions, which is a good practice for companies. Like, hey, you don't need to read this, but at least know that we can use this, we're going to do this, and we're going to do that. Are you agree with it? Okay, yeah. It's more reliable. Like in the last 20 years, the terms and conditions were just a pile of legal circumstances that no one read, of course. But I believe that is going to change. The big difference, even, companies now can produce your content that you work on these companies like Marvel, Disney. But first, I think law is going to come at some point. I don't see a big company risking so much on that line of production. I think companies care a lot about public opinion, because it's where money goes. And backlash is a dangerous thing. I not know how to position myself in the cancel culture or not, but it is true that companies move, with hip, depending on how the public sees things in general. Even they hire or fire actors and actresses depending on that. I don't see, and that's why I also insist not just in the legal path, but also in the public opinion path about AI. Not trying to manipulate people about AI, but just giving them the facts of what is going on. If people feel that something is not right, I don't know if that's gonna hold over time in big companies using AI for generative images. Companies use AI for everything, like even for statistics, and see what new Netflix series is going to be successful in their models on prediction, risk investment. Everyone is used AI. I'm talking more about the idea of doing a IP, a new character, a new Marvel hero based on a prompt where you are going to put the style of someone there, or you are going to try to use prompts that they are somehow using already existing heroes. I don't see a company, big one, doing that. Otherwise, you can't do a new superhero if you don't tell the AI where to look at. You know what I mean? That's the contradiction. It's like, in the moment you put a prompt, you are telling the AI, where should I look at? Should I look at Artstation? Should I look at Pinterest? Should I look at Canon camera or IMAX maybe, or Marvel? You need somehow always to go to this border there. So. Yeah.
I mean, some of the more interesting stuff I ever saw anyone do using Midjourney was actually fictional films. I'm going to say something that I thought was actually kind of interesting, that they took, for example, that Star Trek was based on a 1920s never produced German movie made by Fritz Lang, and it had this fictional movie, and they clearly wrote an actual background story of this, that Fritz Lang tried to produce something that was called Star Trek basically, but in German, and then he was never able to finish it, and that was the inspiration for Star Trek, and they created this fictional story, and then they had generated these images in the style of Fritz Lang, which were very much like Star Trek, with a spaceship and these German expressionist style actors, and it was based on obviously Metropolis and Star Trek itself. So you know, there was this interesting, it was an interesting use of something, but of course they're still taking images where I presume at that point the plaintiff would be clearly Star Trek. I mean, if this is not commercial and it's a Facebook joke, then it may have some use. But you've still got Midjourney has wider issues, as we've been discussing, where material is just coming from all over the place.
However, that could be a use. Right now, I rather prefer to wait what law has to say internationally about all this. But it is true that when the things settle down a bit, I believe that inspiration is a good use of AI generative images. Hopefully, with non-copyrighted material, like I see this kind of mix of I don't know, David Fincher meets World War Z3, and you mix the Star Wars or whatever, and then it spits out like this kind of horrible, bizarre images, but at least it stimulates ideas. Like if I want to see patterns of, again, everyone puts Fibonacci. Some people I think discovered what is Fibonacci in the last year, or golden ratio and things like that. Some people is reading the dictionary of art finally. Okay, that's a use of, it's the same way that you go to Pinterest or to Artstation and you put in your PureRef work of others and you check time to time. No one in VFX, I mean, myself, I try to don't look references, to be honest, just because I got my master's when I learned art. I like how they work. They just check 5 minutes references and they close Google and they start working. So you stimulate memory and your own connections rather than AI hand connection. But let's imagine some people, my girlfriend itself, like use a reference and had PureRef with a lot of work of Riot Game, Blizzard, like copyrighted material. Not Midjourney, but at least AI using non-copyrighted work can work very nicely, at least to stimulate the first trigger. Like you saw this Monty Python sketch where they offer conversations rather than dinner. So you go to dinner and they offer, you want to talk about philosophy, you would prefer about politics, and they offer a menu of conversations. I think it's a good trigger to, oh yeah, something like this. And then you check that, 5 minutes, a couple of prompts, and then you start working in your stuff. But you don't use that material, you just put your take there.
The first, the rough cut of Star Wars had footage from World War II, so it actually had pilot footage. So one of, and the trench run was based on, the dam busters. So it had actual footage from World War II pilots for the dogfights. They had no VFX for the X-wing; they hadn't been produced yet. So they did this first edit with this cut, and obviously that was limited when they were showing it to producers because a lot of producers didn't understand it. Someone like Spielberg in the audience was like, "Oh, I love this. This is gonna make $1 million. This is gonna be." Well, it actually made it a lot more than $1 million, but this is going to be, a massive success. Whereas a producer couldn't understand it. Now you could imagine that not for the final film, but that might be a use of AI. Could I imagine my starship fighting the way like in these World War II dogfights, and create a kind of crappy image, but then you can show to production. If you've worked in VFX, you know exactly how many iterations we show. We know that whole phase where they're like, I know what I want when I see it, and and I could imagine it would be great to use something like AI for that stage of the process of like, okay, what, like this, or like that, like this, like that, and then we'll do it properly.
Yeah, you are not stealing, you are pitching, and basically you can even create jobs. I think it's a smart way of using that. That's why I always put in the headline, no, it's not AI, it's no to the unethical use of AI. Because, again, going back to politics, the way you can get things done in politics is not being against, but being in favor of something. But you define what exactly you mean by that. In this case, let's use AI in a way that doesn't affect artists, doesn't steal from artists, and doesn't break an entire economy. In the art field, animation, VFX, video games, card games, and that's the exercise. I would say the exercise is not, and it's hard because I understand. I always advocate of the idea of disrupt first, build later. Otherwise, people don't care. And this is the sadness of social media. Sometimes you need to be a little sensationalist or a little bit, like extreme to be heard. And then, okay, now that you listen to me, it's like, hello, I'm here. You scream, people shut up, and then you start talking normal. So I think now people heard us. Now we got the voice. Now we can articulate better what we want. And if we do this a little bit aside of emotions, I think we are going to get farther and farther and farther. Because now the media eyes, the legal eyes, the AI eyes are on us and our reactions. And we need to look like we are going to fight for this with all what we got. And you are not going to put us in an emotional corner like Ludities or whatever they want to tell, because the fight is going to be long, but the fight is fair, and it will happen, historically. I think in the following years we will see changes in law. And that's my take. That's why I'm slowing down the emotional part, because in Christmas I was on fire. I can't tell you that. I was I was seeing so many things, like, it's like, man, this is... but now it's like, I've been contacting Sheridans, I've been contacting different lawyers. I was reading about different laws in different countries and also stable diffusions. And this is my exercise, and it's the exercise I recommend to every artist, because I think it's quite important.
To understand the model. So I hate to use the phrase "we're not Luddites," because I studied history and I know that the Luddites weren't anti-technology themselves. They were artisans who were replaced by child labour, unskilled labour in factories. They lived in a society where they didn't have the vote, they didn't have any welfare. So when they lost their jobs, they actually starved. Many of them did starve. So their violent reaction to factories, their literal throwing a spanner in the works, was a case of them not having rights. In this case, we have rights. We have, well, most of us, obviously we have a worldwide audience, the rights are going to vary as well. But we have certain rights, we have certain protections, and therefore we can articulate our arguments, and we can, fight for things through various sort of legal channels. But again, the aim is, as I think we've been quite clear, we're not opposed to. Well, we're not opposed to technology. In fact, we did it very early on. We did a live podcast led by Kofi, where we had a discussion about AI quite early on with artists and art teachers and various people. And some were quite in favour. Some were using it for pitches. Some were using it for all kinds of things. But once you start, as you said, once you've seen some of the issues that come up, people deliberately imitating somebody's style, and again, this query of where did they get the data set, and did they have the right to that data set, then we start to sort of see some of the sort of kind of the problems. Yeah. And it's just about resolving those so that we can move forward. Like, we can drive a car, but we can't just drive at 200 miles an hour through a residential area. Yeah. Having come full circle, I guess I would just like to let you articulate what you believe is ethical use of AI, ways in which artists could take advantage of this technology, and ways in which the data sets could be created in a manner that does not infringe upon people's artistic endeavors.
Yeah, again, AI, first of all, even generative images technology is not even AI, it's more like machine learning, because AI is intelligence and there is no a real intelligence there. So, about the ethical uses, again, it's a matter of, the line will be, I think, it's going to happen in the following years, because we are still trying to find our positions. Even big companies are trying to take the temperature of the people to see where they position themselves. So I do believe in the common sense. I do believe in that strongly. Like, if you feel something is wrong, it's most likely because it's wrong. As simple as that. And there is a bit of exercise there to abstract from your will and something that you like. And AI can be pretty addictive to the point that you can lose the control of your own opinion about the technology, because you want the pump, the hype of pressing again the prompt. So my point is, in the way I use AI, for example, is to brainstorm, to build procedural mazes using my own original pieces of little mazes, and then I just do wave function collapse, which is a kind of primitive AI, so I can create more of that. to do more of your own creation, which I think is not quite exciting, to be honest. I rather enjoy more creating new pieces by my own and making all the millions of choices that are involved in a creative work. But I rather prefer, if I want to have a final say on that, because I'm pretty sure there are many students, many people, juniors, that they want to jump into the industry, many fans of art that they are worried about what is going to be next. And I feel fear even in young people about should I study art or not. And there is a beautiful, almost poetic contradiction of all this, that is, yes, more than ever, double up. Like, really now is the moment where you have a voice. Like, literally, art in the last 20 years has been sadly quite driven either by, let's say, postmodern art or by massive Hollywood industry and video games industry, which has already standards that this is your fence, and if you go outside the fence, you are not gonna sell. So we got already a style of superheroes, we got already a style of formula movie that is gonna work, and we need to put the exact amount of darkness or joy in this movie, in our heroes, in our color palettes, because this is how we are gonna sell. Merchandising, everything. So that is good. I work on Marvel, I work on Disney, I work on all these movies. Okay, I can put a bit of my opinion on this, but you are still more like a crafter sometimes. We are all artists, but we are crafting whatever we have from dailies, or from the client, or from someone who is feared from production, that, oh, we need to put brighter because this is, it needs to be PG. Now, there is a historical event that talks about us, about our passion, about our identity. So now you have the tool, now you can use the talent. Doesn't matter if you draw good or bad, if you do good or bad 3D, you can now find who you are through art more than ever. It's a kind of identity seek more than job seeking. Art and economy never work so well, okay? But let's start with that. From his, I mean, like even Da Vinci needed to work from Christianism or religion, and he was a troll. He was trolling. You remember in the I don't know the name in English, Capilla Sistina, the painting, and you can see that he did all God as a brain, saying God is in the brain actually. So he was a troll. He used art as a way of fighting for his ideas, and now you have the opportunity. I know this is a big take for someone who is 18 years old. Yeah.
Wasn't it Michelangelo's Capella Sistina? No.
Oh, that. I don't know the translation in.
Chapel. No, sorry. I think.
Da Vinci. No, Michelangelo, yeah.
Yeah, Michelangelo. Yeah, sorry. Do you want to say it again? Just to not say Michelangelo.
Oh, yeah. No,
I think it's a good point. It sounds silly if you said the wrong artist.
No, it's Michelangelo. That we can see how artists historically use their talent not just to get the money from different institutions, but also to put their ideas. Like Michelangelo in La Capilla Sixtina, you can see how the God is itself inside a brain with the perfect shape of a brain. I mean, the message is clear: God is in the brain. Period. So he was always fighting like that. Like Goya. He was always working for the royalty, and he hated royalty. He always painted all the royal family like really needed some extra time on school, Now there is a historical event, and you can use art. Obviously, don't spend your energy always putting no AI art in creative ways, but at least to find who you are. And even if it's not gonna make you money in the very beginning, trust me, in the long run, your name is more important than your art. People don't buy art or don't consume art just because the vignette or the shot. It's because you are the voice. So AI can't do that, because I'm not gonna feel empathetic, or I want to know the history of this microchip or this tensor core. I want to know where it's coming from and his past. No, but I can feel empathy about you as an artist. So now is the moment of doing more art than ever. Now is the moment to try to be a bit different, to do less maybe, monsters with 4 horns and big teeth, or new superheroes, and maybe trying to find who am I? what I want to tell here. So that's my little note about this, because some people is afraid about studying art or not, studying art or dedicate to art or not. And I would say, fuck yeah, more than ever. Right now, stop this, and next thing, just do your shot, do a comp, do an animation, find your style, find who you are, and try to tell me why should I care about you more than an AI. And trust me, you are gonna win this fight in the long run, for sure.
We need more artists creating art. We you know, I mean, I think that's true. Lots of talented people. I mean, Artstation itself, it would, you know, sort of corral people into this kind of like, you know, manga cyberpunk girls with big boobs and in bikinis with big guns and swords.
AI can take
everything
that.
oversized, and AI can do that. But you know, AI Artstation already was problematic in that it was corralling artists into this certain style. You would see that the arts that were getting views
because
were
the
not necessarily innovative or particularly inspiring. Many of them were technically incredible.
But do you know anyone that entered the industry just to do the copy of? Do you know? I don't. Maybe I'm wrong, but I don't see. I see always like a story when I was a kid, I was playing this game, or I watched this movie and I wanted to do that. I don't see like, yeah, I want to do what Artstation people do exactly. No. That's more like a market shaping, but not the real inside artist. You know?
But maybe this fact that we have been, in a sense, trying to follow the algorithms of social platforms. Artists have, in a sense, been behaving more like AI, and a bit like how, you know. I mean, I know it was a fallacy when we're talking about the copyright, but when you talk about photography and art, you know, after you had photography, you had artists like Picasso who could draw realistically, but there was a certain sudden realization. There's no point. If I want something that looks like a tree, I mean, I can take a picture and it looks like a tree, but if I want to create something new, I can create it. And so suddenly you had this move away from, you know, necessarily the strict interpretation of realization, and say, why do I want a picture of a tree? What do I feel when I look at a tree? Or what do when I see a bull? Why is that? What is it about a bull that is interesting? Or a chicken? You know, I mean, I don't know if the Gombrich history of art. There's a story of art. There's a brilliant side by side of Picasso's drawing of 13 of a chicken, which is perfectly realistic, looks like a chicken, and then his pretty crazy adult kind of interpretation of a chicken, which looks far less realistic, almost looks more childlike, but it tells you like this chicken is angry and this chicken is going to pet you, and you're like, oh, whoa, look, watch out for that chicken.
The AI that they always create 6 fingers, hyper-realistic faces with 6 fingers, are way less expressive than the Simpsons, that they have 4 fingers and they're fucking hilarious. And it's super easy to draw. So I just worry that maybe we end up in another Dadaism or Cubism thingy, an artist. Like they want to fight the opposite, would be like completely abstract, which I don't care, but it is true that we need somehow to find... it's sad, but it is true that art is also a weapon. Sorry, we are going to live now in a circumstance where we need a bit of extra effort. Let's accept that. It's going to happen. But also with optimism, because I believe in the long run, I craving for art. I really want more. And I'm super happy that I remove connections of AI prompters on LinkedIn, that now I start to see more animation tests, more concept tests, and oh wow, this is fucking cool. I appreciate more art than before. I think art is gonna raise the value. AI can create so much millions of images that if you think about the offer and demand economic laws, when you have a lot of offer, the demand just goes down and the price is very low. When you have something more unique, the price, diamonds, gold, the price rises now. So I do believe that if you put more effort into, rather than doing a copycat of whatever you saw in the last 10 years of Artstation and think, what I think about this, or what IP, what I want to create, or what kind of animation style is gonna define a bit better myself, then you will have a beautiful, not chance to be recognized, but chance to build a very important and interesting career, I would say.
Brilliant. I think that's a great place to stop the discussion. I'd love to get you back and talk a bit about your company. Obviously, we've been specific on this debate, but I would, as more comes out, I would love to talk about your entrepreneurism and how you got involved with that. So we'll definitely have you back at some point on the show. But I think that was a fantastic point to end. I'd love to thank you for your time.
Thank you.
And we'll speak to you soon.
Thank you so much.
And everyone, post your comments, questions, and demands in the comment section. Or if you're on an audio platform, you can always head over to our website or to YouTube, or you can contact us on LinkedIn or any of the social platforms, because we're pretty much everywhere. Not really on Facebook, but everywhere else, and including Mastodon. Have a great evening, and speak to you soon.